little bit on, the backside of this little pamphlet we're distributing, but what we are, what is this concept of a free tour? Well, I work for Standymans, right? But even though I work for the company, me and my colleagues, we don't actually get a salary. So we make a living actually off of what you guys, each of you decide that this tour is worth. So all we really ask of you is that as we're going from place to place, just, think about what I'm doing, think about whether you think I'm doing a good job, I'm entertaining, I'm teaching you something, and then at the end of the tour, based on that, you get the full freedom of deciding, what you want to give me or not give me. It's up to you. I do like to stress, though, that not only do we not get a salary, but we actually pay the company. Yeah, I know, how crappy is that, right? Not only do they not pay us, we pay them. And we pay them per person on the tour, right? What this means, you guys are a very big group. Not only does this mean, it's a lot, but it also means that if you leave halfway through my tour because you're tired or I don't know, whatever reason, that ends up directly affecting me. So I just want to stress this because, sometimes it happens that big groups leave because they're tired and they don't really realize, and it's just at the end of the day not very considerate of what I do, and I honestly get a little offended by it. Yeah, I get a little offended, even if, it has nothing to do with me. So yeah, that's it. That's about all I'm going to say on the subject. Now we're going to get started on the fun part of the tour, okay? So where are we now?
Plaza Mayor.
We're on Plaza Mayor, okay? I'm so glad when people know where we are. This is a good step, guys. Congratulate yourselves. Yes, we are on Plaza Mayor. You can see it on that side right over there. Plaza Mayor. So we learned our first word in Spanish today already, and that was patata. Very difficult word to learn. The second word we're going to learn in Spanish today is mayor. Anyone know what mayor means? Where are my Spanish Argentinians? I need to keep track of you guys. Where was the Argentinian? Did he leave already?
The greatest.
Huh?
The greatest.
Oh, the greatest, the greatest. Okay, it means great.
Oh, great.
Kind of. Okay, trick question. It has three meanings. It actually means big, it means main, and it means old. Okay, Spanish language, right?
Main.
Never make it simple. And this square, it's all three of these things. So it was commissioned to be built under the Habsburg era. The Habsburgs, they were an Austrian family. And it was commissioned to be built by Philip II, okay? He was the third king during the Habsburgs. Don't get all confused with, these names, because we're actually going to go into that whole history in about 20 minutes' time. Just remember that Philip II is the one who commissioned the building of this square. But the square didn't actually get built until 30 years later, under Philip III's time. Philip III, whose statue this is. So I did say that it took this square about 30 years to get built. This isn't really a new concept in Spain. It's actually going to be a recurring theme on our tour, things taking a very long time to get built. That's because Spanish time isn't really the same as normal time, as you'll come to learn when you live here. And as I said, because of that, Philip III, he was the son of the guy who actually commissioned the building of the square. So a little bit about this statue. There's a general rule for equestrian statues that applies all around Europe. And this has to do with how many hooves of the horse are touching the ground. And this is actually supposed to say something about how the king died. So if there are 4 hooves touching the ground, it means that the king has died of natural causes. If there are 3 hooves touching the ground, it means that the king has died of battle wounds. And if there are 2 hooves touching the ground, it means that the king has died a noble death. Right? And as I said, this equestrian rule applies basically all around Europe. Except for here in Spain, because in Spain we don't do this, things the same as anywhere else. It always has to be more complicated. And as we're going to see, this guy, Philip III, he most definitely did not die of, anyone remember? Battle wounds, 3 hooves on the ground. He actually died of laziness. Yeah, so we're going to get into that story in about 20 minutes' time. Something else about this square that we're on. So Madrileños, that's what we call people in Madrid, they didn't used to come here very often. You know why? Because this square, it used to really stink. It used to stink really, really badly. And no one really understood why, right? Because, it was always clean. There wasn't trash anywhere. And it was weird because the closer you got to the statue, the stronger the smell was. And it really, really seemed like it was just the horse that had really bad breath. Like there was just, smell coming out of the horse's mouth. So then what happened was in 1931, there was an anti-monarchist riot, right? And when the riot happened here on Plaza Mayor, the horse, it got knocked over, it fell to the ground, the stomach of the horse of the statue burst open and hundreds of bird skeletons flew out all over the place, all over Plaza Mayor. Anyone know what had been happening over hundreds of years? Any guesses?
It goes through the mouth.
Huh?
Nesting?
Nesting. I wouldn't call it nesting. I would more call it like a bird cemetery, right? What had been happening was birds over hundreds of years were flying into the horse's mouth, which was hollow at the time, and they were getting stuck inside of the horse's stomach. So they were turning it into essentially a bird cemetery, right? So when the statue got knocked over, all of these birds all over the place. These clever Spaniards, though, they did decide to, renovate the statue, and when they did, they filled in the horse's mouth this time, right? And we like to think that they cleaned it on the inside, but we have no guarantee, okay?
Sorry, when was that?
That was in 1931, so anti-monarchist riot. Yeah, and so that is this statue. So another reason that Spaniards didn't really tend to come to the square a lot was, one, I told you it was stinky. Two, Spaniards, they tend to be really superstitious, right? And you have these people in the world, I don't know if any of you are one of them, who really feel energies, right? They feel other people's energies, they feel bad energies, good energies. And those people would never come to Plaza Mayor because they would always get these really bad vibrations. And that's because Plaza Mayor, back in the time of the Spanish Inquisition, under all of these restaurants over here, there used to be torture chambers. And these torture chambers were used by the Spanish Inquisition, which used to carry out their public executions right here on this square. These public executions, apart from normal ways of executions, we have any examples, normal ways of execution?
Hanging.
Hanging.
Beheading.
Beheading, we didn't do so much here. They didn't guillotine so much. Hanging, burning, and then we have our special form of execution used here in Spain. It's called the garrote. Yeah, it sounds creepy, right? It is kind of creepy. So will you be my volunteer, please? Thank you. Wonderful. So this over here is a traitor. He is a traitor to the Spanish Inquisition, and I want to execute him using the famous garrote. So what I do is I essentially sit him down on a chair. He gets tied up against this big wooden post over here with a screw at the side of the post. The screw is tied to this kind of hard rope that we put around his neck. And then behind the post, tied to the screw, is this wheel.
You're not my wife, are you?
Oh, no, I'm not your wife. And so, if I want to just execute him, right, if I just want to kill him straight up, what I do is I turn the wheel really quickly, the rope tightens against his neck, and he chokes to death, right? It breaks all of his little bones right over here. But if what I want to do instead is just torture him, right? If I want to extract confessions out of him, get him to denounce his neighbors, then what I can do is I can have the wheel turned over the course of several days, so that the rope slowly and slowly tightens against his neck. The anticipation drives him crazy. It tortures him as it, so slowly gets tighter, and eventually I kill him off anyway. So thank you, you're done. So yeah, that is the Spanish Inquisition. Next, we're actually going to go and we're going to start talking about my favorite subject in the world, which is food and drinking.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go talk about that. Around the corner.
Je pense que le prof a estimé que c'est un mot comme ça. Non, c'est normal ça. Ils ont plus de place.
Español por aquí, ¿eh?
outside fan. Yeah? 3 uses. Everyone got a map? No? Map? Map?
Okay.
I have 2 more. And then you have to wait till the halfway point. Are you sure? Anyone want to pass it to this nice gentleman over here? All right, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think you were expecting to come to Madrid today and actually get to see the oldest restaurant in the world. I'm not kidding. This over here is the oldest restaurant in the world. If you don't believe me, you can come here and look in the window. The Guinness Book of World Record certificate is right here for the oldest restaurant in the world. It dates back to 1725. It was opened up by a Frenchman called Bottine. And the restaurant is named after this Frenchman, Bottine, as you can see. So, you know, I mean, that's a pretty strong reputation to have, right? Oldest restaurant, first restaurant in the world. And for this reputation, for being the oldest, it's actually not that outrageously expensive. In fact, you can get a menu minus the dessert and the wine for around 25 to 30 euros. That is, unless you decide to order the 2 specialties that they serve here, which are the baby eels and the suckling pig. Does that sound appetizing to anyone? Yeah, kind of. Ugh, no. Anyways, and those will go probably about 100 euros a plate, so please watch out you don't get, you know, into that whole mess. It might be a nice surprise at the end of the dinner. Somebody who actually used to come here quite often back in the 1930s, you may have heard of him, his name was Ernest Hemingway. Yeah? Ernest Hemingway? Ernest Hemingway, he actually went around a lot to Spain. He was a frequent visitor in Spain. He was a journalist during the Spanish Civil War. He really loved Madrid. He actually said that it was the most Spanish of all cities. So there you go, Barcelona. And he used to come over here and he used to stuff himself silly, eat a bunch, and get really, really drunk here. But you know, if you do decide to follow Ernest Hemingway and his whereabouts, you'll notice that he pretty much did that not only in all places around Madrid, but in all places in the world, right? Ernest Hemingway, he really liked to eat and drink, and most places will actually tell you, you know, oh, Ernest Hemingway was here. And it doesn't get that exciting after a while. It's like, Jesus, this man was everywhere. But here in Madrid, if you actually go to 1 street away to a restaurant called Kitchen Stories, you will see a plaque outside the restaurant that says, Ernest Hemingway never got drunk here. Right? So that's what makes Madrid special, right? We have the only place that actually has a plaque that says Ernest Hemingway never got drunk here. I mean, how awesome is that? So, Ernest Hemingway, he was here. Somebody else who worked as a pot wash, a dishwasher in this restaurant, that was Francisco de Goya. Anyone heard of Goya?
Yeah.
Goya? Yeah? Pretty famous guy, famous European painter. It's okay, some people have never heard of him, don't feel bad if you haven't. So Goya, he actually came to Madrid in order to work at the Art Academy because he was a painter. And he was rejected from the Art Academy, which is very ironic because he did go on to be one of the most famous European painters. He actually became the painter for the royal family, ironically enough, right? And he was a pretty clever guy because he managed to paint for the royal family, get paid by them, right? Get paid a very decent amount of money. And he didn't really like the royal family. So he managed to paint them and make fun of them at the same time. And he would insert into his paintings all of these little things that would basically mock them. And of course they wouldn't notice. They would be like, oh, what a lovely painting, you know? And so actually if you go to the Prado Museum, which is the Museum of Classical Art right here in Madrid, from 16th century to 19th century art, and you go and see Goya's section, you will see this giant painting of the whole royal family, and right in the center of the painting you see the Queen. Why the Queen? Because Goya knew that she was the one who was actually running the country. Haha, that's how much he hated the king, right? So, as I said, Prado Museum, you can go see 16th to 19th century art, you can go see Goya's work, Velázquez, another very famous painter's work. It's open from 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. every single day, except Sundays 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. and it's free the last 2 hours of every day. So, if you guys are interested, going to a museum for free. Otherwise, general admission is about 14 euros, reduced is about 8 euros, right? But you can go for free, check out this museum. It's very overwhelming, so I do suggest that, you know, you guide your way through the very famous painters. Goya, he also painted this other very famous painting called La Maja Desnuda. What does this mean? Spanish speakers? The Naked Woman. And this is a painting of a naked woman reclined against some pillows. And what I liked about this painting is it was actually made into a postage stamp back in the 1930s. And this postage stamp was banned by the US government. And the US government actually sent back to Spain every single incoming letter with this postage stamp on it. So there you go, American Puritanism, right? Good for us, good for us. All right, let's go to the square over here.